Welcome to another episode of SizWhippin. You join me in the 2015 Land Rover Range Rover Vogue. Big boy. Let's get it. Another episode of SizWhippin. Thank you for joining me again. We're here today with a 2015 Land Rover Range Rover Vogue. Now, this car is coming up 5 years old now, and it has done an astonishing 101,000 miles, 450 I think to be exact, which is crazy. We all know how the story goes when it comes to Land Rovers, well, Range Rovers to be particular. They're unreliable, they're this, they're that, don't get a high mileage one, don't do this, don't do that. Well, I'm here to see in this video if we can bust that myth wide open. This car has been in my family for 5 years, ever since it was new, so we've got it with delivery miles of I think like 10, and we've put all 101,450 whatever miles of it have gone onto that clock have been through my family and my family only. This car is the family car. We have 4 cars, but this is the family car. This is taken absolutely everywhere, road trips, to work. My parents live in the country, so going to work is just outside of London, so that's a lot of motorway cruising. I mean, if you look at the averages, it's 20,000 miles a year, which is a lot. I mean, I barely cover 8,000, and I think I drive a lot. But yeah, my parents really do drive a lot. As we all know, with this Range Rover, this is the 4th generation Range Rover that has come out. First, this model variant came out in 2013, this being a late 2015 model year. Now, talking about the specs of the car, now my family cheaped out when we ordered this car. This is a bottom of the range Range Rover. It is not completely there are options on it, but it is complete, like, it is the bottom of the range one. It's not even the SE, Vogue SE, or the Autobiography. It doesn't even have the 4.4 litre V8 or the 5 litre V8, supercharged V8. This has the 3 litre turbo diesel engine. So yeah, the 3 litre SD V6. So nothing much crazy there. It's got 275 horsepower, 500 pound-feet of torque from about 3,000 RPM. But it still is a sizable engine and a decent engine for its size, for what it's capable of and what it needs to be doing. This car 5 years ago, I remember the base list of this car, I believe, was 79,000. But after a couple of options, which are not a lot, but still a couple of options, this car was now in the mid-80s, closer towards the 90s of thousands. So almost £100,000 Range Rover, but it's still bottom of the range one. Now, like I said, it's my parents' car. I didn't get to spec it out the way I want it because, you know, I don't pay these bills, you know. It's their bills, it's their car, they did it how they want. I had suggestions on how they should style it out, how they should look it out, but they didn't want to do it, they didn't want to hear me out. So one thing I'm definitely not a fan of are the alloy wheels. These are the standard 19-inch alloys, which I think look absolutely terrible. I think on this vehicle you need at least the 22s, the 23s, you need to be sitting on something heavy, you know? The side profile, you can also tell by then that's also quite the basic one, because the side profile is quite boring. On the Autobiography models, the grills on the side there would be silver. The door handles as well, there would be silver accents on the door handles. And we didn't option to have the deployable side steps. Those 3 things I just mentioned there, you see a Range Rover side profile with those on, it really looks good. It really, really looks good. So if you are going to be looking for one, have a look at that, really. Now moving on to the back. The back looks great, you know. As long as you get tinted windows from your B pillar onwards, the back will always look good. And what you now start to see with a lot of people is that what they're doing, they're getting these second-hand, and then they're not aftermarket, but they're OEM plussing their car by putting the brand new Range Rovers facelifted rear lights at the back, which are possible, but not in the front, because the shape of the grille is actually different with the newer model, with the facelift model, so you can't actually get the new headlights, but you can get the rear ones, which is not too bad at all. We also optioned this car with the premium LED headlights as well. As you can see from the details in there, it's just nice to see that all the little details that have gone into play there. It's the 3000 lumens. They've got the Range Rover written in there. They do a little nice dance, the lights. I just really like them. When they're compared to the third generation Range Rover when that came out, that was a massive upgrade, was these headlights and the rear ones. The whole car in general, but it was just such a good one there. Now, one of the best things about the Range Rover as well is its commanding driving position. When you're in here, you really do feel like you are lording yourself over all the other road users, and the command position, the visuals that you have out the car, are really, again, fantastically done in here. I have great support here. The electric seats, they seem to just move on and on and on forever. You have your bolstering as well, upper, lower, side to side as well, which is very much electrical adjustable, which is again another great thing to have. Even though there are cheap plasticky buttons on the bottom of the Range Vogue, it's still very nice in here, so you don't really have to worry about that too much, you get me? But yes, you can go from feeling as low as you can within this car to feeling mighty high and the king of the motorways when you're up here as well. Really cool feature. The Range Rover is actually really easy and really comfortable as well for a back passenger. This is with my setting that I would sit with in front if I was driving, and as you can see, I've got a lot of room. My knee room, and I'm 6'1", remember that. My knee room is more than enough. My headroom is pretty good. What's also great about these seats is that you can make them recline a bit. So it really is a really nice and luxurious place to be in here. With the Meridian sound system, you've got the 2 speakers here at the back, amplifying even more. It is just a very, very nice place to be. The leather just feels so good on your back, and it's just a really nice place to sit in. And don't be fooled, this car, like I said, it's done 101,000 miles, and it has been a family car. It's our family car. And besides me, when I've not been living at my parents' house, my sister definitely and her friends have all been in the back here. So as you can see, for 101,000 miles, these seats have held up really, really, really well. In my opinion, this car looks like it's done 20,000 in my mind, not 101,000. But yeah, as I was saying, such a nice place to be. You've got touch-sensitive LED lights in the back. You've got dual zone climate control here at the back too, with your seat heating. You don't get seat heating and ventilating at the front seats, but you do get rear seat heating in here, which is another option that we chose on here, which is really good. The dual zone climate, so either side can choose what temperature they want, also control fan speed and fan direction, all the good things over there. And it's just the really small touches which are so nice. Like even just the Range Rover emblem that's just over here with the 2 cigarette lighters. It is just such a comfortable place to be. And as I was saying already, the skylight just makes such a difference. There's just so much light that's been brought into this cabin, which is what sets it off from a lot of other 4x4s. Now, being a Range Rover, this has an incredibly massive boot. 909 litres to be exact. And one thing that's always been signature of the Range Rover is the split tailgate. This time being fully electric, up to the top and the bottom, and even the fact that you can, even with all 105 kgs of me, you can sit on the tailgate. Another thing that I love about the Range Rover is that from the access of your button here, you just click that, boom, just by himself. A lot of other car makers, I think some old Audi Q7s from the same era didn't do that. You actually had to come and press the button in the car or on the right side, which was quite annoying. But another point to the Range Rover there. Now, sadly, when we got this Range Rover, we didn't option it with the buttons over here that you could press that could move all the seats forward, that you could lower the ride height of the car with the air suspension in order to get shopping and everything in. However, one thing that is kind of addressed with that is that the car does have access height anyway. So when the car is parked and when it is then unlocked, the car is already in its lower suspension setting anyway. So getting things in is actually quite easy if the engine is still off. Once you start the engine, then the ride height adjusts back to its normal setting, or whatever it reads is deemed appropriate for that surface at that time. So I bet the question everyone wants to know is, what does a Range Rover that is only 5 years old but has done 101,450 miles feels like? It must feel all the rattles and the shakes, and everything must feel like it's coming loose, and it must just be feeling like, oh my god, it's bedlam, it's hell, it's just the worst thing ever. A high mileage Range Rover, oh my god, it is the most unreliable and horrible thing on planet Earth. You're wrong. You're very much wrong. And this car is used. This is the family car. This car is used every single day. This is the car that gets used the most. This one. This gets used the most. This is the most loved car that we have. So that's the reason why it's put on a lot of mileage in just a short space of time. 20,000 a year for 5 years. Now the main reason of that being is my parents live out in the country. Beautiful, beautiful part of the world. However, they work close to London. So every single day they are on the motorway doing up miles. And when my sister was at school, they were dropping her to school, doing up miles, going into London, coming back to pick my sister up. She didn't go to school near our house, and then coming. It was a lot of miles. So you can forgive the fact that this car has a lot of miles on it, but it's still in good shape. That's one thing I can definitely say about the Range Rover, and I'm so happy to say that. It is a very reliable Land Rover. No, but seriously, it's a reliable Land Rover. It still feels as tight as it should do. If I'm honest with you, it feels like it's a 20,000 mile car. That's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like it's done over 101,000 miles, you know? Now, the one thing about the Range Rover is that its ride quality, it's just superior, man. There is no other way of putting it. Whether you're the driver, or the front passenger, or rear passengers. But even if you're in the boot, I'm telling you now, this car is so comfortable. And that again is another reason why it has been the family car that is used for everything and everywhere, because it's so comfortable. With its air suspension, it just glides over bumps, anything. Bro, you could honestly run over someone's body. You could run over a human and you just be like, oh, what was that, a little hump? Like, that is how comfortable this car is, and still is 100,000 miles later. And the one thing everyone always goes on about, now I don't want to jinx it, but everyone always talks about the thing about buying Range Rovers used. I mean, this was bought from new, as I mentioned, but buying new used Range Rovers, which this will be when we sell it on to someone, it's just so unreliable, things are gonna break and everything. Now, let me give you an honest review on what it's like, what it's been like when we've had this car in our family. The majority of the problems actually came in the first 10,000 miles of our family having this car, and not a lot ever since. First thing that went out was the steering wheel heating. That just refused to work. Had to go straight back in, obviously all under warranty still, and it still broke down another 2 times. So not exactly the most trustworthy and most awe-inspiring and confidence-building start to having a Range Rover, but a start nonetheless. Twice the digital cluster went out, so it would just have Land Rover even when the engine was on and we were moving, so you could not tell what speed you were doing, RPM, fuel, anything. It just had Land Rover in the middle and had the mileage and the date. That was about it. And you know what? I've just put my foot down now, and I keep forgetting that even though for a well over 2.5 ton car, and this being the bottom of the range engine base with the 3-litre SDV6, 275 horsepower, 500 pound-feet of torque, it still moves. It still moves. It may be the bottom of the range engine, but it still moves, you know? And even after all these years, it still feels very smooth, progressive through the gears with this 8-speed ZF gearbox. It knows what it's doing. I don't need to tell it what to do. I mean, I've got paddle shifters up here, and that's great, but I don't need to tell it what to do. This car knows itself. It knows it better than I can tell it. But this car knows itself so well. And that is the one thing I can definitely say, maintenance-wise. Like I said earlier, the digital screen went out. What else happened? I'm trying to think now. Not a lot has happened with this car, if I'm being totally honest with you. Servicing, it's actually due a service now. That's been one of the secrets, I believe, of keeping this car so reliable and it being such a steady workhorse for our family, is that we have been very rigorous with servicing it. When it goes in for servicing, the first time it even gets out, boom, you need a service. Within the next 10 miles of that boom going, it goes in for service. So that is one thing that I can definitely stress is something that helps with being able to make this car maintainable and reliable. Because in my family, now this sounds really posh to say, but in my family, this is our 4th Range Rover we've had. You know, we've had Sports, we've had other Vogues. This is the 4th one we've had now. And I have to say, as we said, this is the latest one also. This has been the most reliable one we've had. It has been extremely, extremely reliable. And we've been very, very fortunate with maintaining it, the costs of it and everything. The only downside of it, and is the downside of anyone with a big luxury SUV that weighs over 2 tons, is the fuel. This is a very, very thirsty V6 diesel. As I said before, it's got an 80-litre tank, 90-litre tank, thereabouts. Like I say, my parents, when they drive this car, they are covering, thank you very much, mate, they are covering more than 50 miles a day. Easily, more than probably, when they had my sister, it was probably more to 80 miles a day. But now, I could comfortably say, yeah, they're doing about 50 miles a day, easily, in this car, you know? And they fill up 120 pounds worth of diesel probably once every 4 days, which is a lot of money, you know? That is not cheap by any means necessary. Do you understand? But what does that mean for fuel efficiency? On average, they've been using, claimed figures was 37.7 miles per gallon back in 2013, this being a 2015 car. Realistically, this car is achieving 31.7 right now. That is really a mix of my parents just driving around the village, but again, mostly that being motorway miles. Now, as we can see, even a track like this right now is probably the most off-road action that this car will ever see, or probably has ever seen. And that's the majority, and that's the case for the majority of Range Rovers. But as we know, that's not what it's about. These cars, yes, you're going to see a lot of them just being, you know, effectively luxury school buses, and seeing up on Sloane Square and all these other places, and that are just not off-road, even though this car does have true off-road heritage. But let me tell you one thing. This is one of those cars that, as much as it goes around finely made Chanel suit, it is still one of those that put its running shoes on and it can still get off-road. This kind of path, absolute light work for a car of this. Absolute light work, my friend. There's nothing here that is scaring this Range Rover off. You got to remember, as much as it is now one up there in the pinnacle and the yardstick of luxury SUVs, it is still a rugged, tugged, off-roading machine. With its off-road gears, a lot of the time it scans, it it scans the roads itself to see what setting is actually best acclimatized for where it is at that point. But yeah, a lot of the time you can change to the sand setting. You can raise the air suspension up. You can put on sand dune, rock climbing through water. I don't need to talk about the off-road capabilities of this car. We know what it is. It's the Range Rover. Come on, don't act stupid. 100,000 miles later, and one thing I can definitely say is that this car still feels so well refined. You have double glazing on all the windows across here, so the acoustics and the sound acoustics in this car are phenomenal. I can hardly hear anything outside. Even right now, my voice is unusually and unnecessarily loud for the inside of this cabin. In fact, you could speak at this level and everyone in this car is going to hear exactly everything you're saying at all times, because the sound acoustics in here are so well done. The refinement that is put into this car, that is another reason why it is the yardstick. That is why, when you have this much of engineering going into a car, this much thought in making sure that if you want to, the driver and the passengers can detach themselves from the fact that they are driving in a car on the road. It is so quiet, so comfortable, so light and airy in here. It's a pleasant place to be. When it comes to being a luxury cruiser, I don't see a lot of cars that beat it. I want to say, I know I'm biased, but I don't see a lot of cars that beat it. There's a reason why the Range Rover is a very good selling machine, very good. It's these things, the refinement, the leather that's just used. We option for the optional Napa leather seats, which are the extended leather package. Boy, comfy. Comfort. It's like God's hand. I'm sitting on God's hand. That's how comfortable I am. It's great in here, man. And I just missed my turn. Now, what's the range like in tight spaces? As you can see right now, it's not a favorable place. I've come to the wrong place, need to reverse. Let's have a look. Let's pop that into reverse. Now, for me personally, I find the Range, maybe because I'm used to driving it, but I have found that the Range Rover is actually quite maneuverable, especially for its size. It turns well. The camera's decent enough for me to see. And although you have an extremely long bonnet, because it's so squared off, you can tell where the edges and everything lie, And yeah, you can't really complain about that. Good turning circle for its size. Obviously, because the steering is so light, easily maneuverable, even out of tight spaces. As long as you know your lines, you can get most turns done in one. Bada bing and bada boom. Right, guys, what's my final thoughts on the 100,000 mile plus Range Rover? We've been extremely lucky. Not just been lucky. We've serviced the car, we've looked after the car. And that's the thing about the majority of cars. You look after them well. Yes, some have the whole thing and the whole reputation of being unreliable. But with this one here, yeah, she's been a good one to the family. A really, really, really good one to the family. And yeah, just look after your cars and they'll look after you, kinda. All they'll do is just rob you for insurance and fuel instead, and tires. Anyway, I think we're gonna leave it there, guys. Thank you so much once again for locking in into SizWhippin. I hope to see you at the next one. But in the meantime, I just need you to do me just one small, tiny, maybe 2, 3 favors. 1, like this video. 2, drop a comment down there below. And 3, but most importantly, please do subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. Helps me get into other cars, helps me bring you more content, and yeah, it's good for everyone all around. Turn that bell notification on so you're alerted next time I drop a video. Right, guys, keep it locked, keep it loaded. In a bit.
Perfect.